Welcome back to the channel, and just in case you're wondering, that is the fan making that noise above me because it is quite hot today. And that said, we're going to be talking about orruks because it's too hot to be painting right now. So yeah, if I look a bit flustered, that's why. So yes, orruks, greenskins in particular. There's a lot to cover because there's a lot of weapon choices to choose from. But to begin with, we're going to be talking about the best way to equip them, the best banners to take, and the best synergies you can get from using other units, especially like the war bosses and the shamans. Now, in this video, we're not going to be talking about allies in particular, so I know you can have points for the allies and use their abilities, but this is going to be just exclusively about the greenskins, not iron jaws and not bone splitters, because they're covered all the time. So yes, so let's begin, shall we? We'll be talking firstly about the stat line, which will be somewhere on the screen, and basically it's all around the same. They do the same amount of damage, which is 1. Fortunately, you can't change that, but it's pretty standard with core units. What you don't see is their bravery is 5, as well as their wounds are 1, as well as finally their movement is 5. There's nothing else really to say other than that for their stats. So we'll just get straight into it, and we'll start with bows, because I think bows are a bit of a waste of time, to be honest, but let's just go through it, shall we? So bows, okay, first off, unfortunately we can't actually buy bows from the Games Workshop web store. The only way to get them is unfortunately secondhand or through conversions, so that's going to take some time on your part to acquire bow orcs. They also don't receive any bonuses in terms of synergies with any other orruk other than the shaman in terms of productivity. They can get the 1 for wounds, however it's a combat ability, not a ranged ability. So for a ranged shooting unit, this is not very good, as you want to keep them out obviously of the combat. As for banners, the bravery banner is completely opposite to the idea of the ranged attacks, because the banner only affects within 3 inches of an enemy unit. So the skull icon banner is actually better to have for the ranged units, as only 6s will mean that orc returns from battle shock. So that is, every one you failed, you get to roll, and on a 6 they'll come back, which is kind of good. Finally, they can have the bonus of having more in the unit size, so they get a 1 to their wound roll. But then remember, to hit, it's a 5, so you're actually going to hit them first before you even get the chance to get that bonus. So that's all there is to the bow unit, really. They get the stabber as well, which is a horrible weapon, but it is there. So you could effectively use these guys as kind of a shoot, run up, and just sort of suicide into something or hold an objective. They could do that, but I think there's some better choices which I'll be going through right. So spears, so what can we say? They get an extra ranged for their attacks, which means that you'll get an extra orc boy in there behind his pal when you're attacking. Really good against larger creatures. Also really good at if you're having a really long line. So let's say you have a mob of 30 of these guys, orcs, you'll be able to attack a lot easier, getting those extra guys in to pile in and get those attacks off. However, unfortunately, they don't have any rend characteristic, and a lot of the newer factions have high armor, so they're going to not be able to hit and do as much damage as they would in comparison to swords. But that said, having shields with the spears means that they get a 5 up reroll on all the combat. It doesn't work for ranged, unfortunately, but for the combat it's excellent. So it's good to have these guys as sort of a mid support. but you're going to need quite a lot of them. And also they're really good at holding objectives because they all get to attack, they all get to pile in, and if you've got enough of them, they're just going to basically block them off the objective entirely. So that's basically the spears. They also have the unit ability of getting extra attack for mob size. Plus, if you add the war ability from the orc general in your army, the war boss, obviously, I mean, he'll give you an extra attack. So you're going to get 3 attacks for every boy in that army of 30, which is quite a lot of attacks. But like I said, a lot of those attacks are going to go through from heavy armored opponents. Lighter units that don't have a save, for example, Reavers have I think a 6 up save or something like that. Anything that's got a save of 5 or more, they'll be able to take down quite easily. So they're really effective against light units and good against bogging down large units. So swords are my personal preference, simply because of the -1 rend, and I'll tell you why that's really important right now. A -1 rend means that basically any unit that has a 6 up save without any abilities will basically die. And that means that your mob has a chance to bog down something else, because it doesn't matter what orruk unit you have with this unit in particular for their war scroll, prolonged battles will end up making their army much weaker, because they don't work very well at holding against enemies. They're expendable, but they're not good at taking down whole armies. You need to leave that to your other units to do. So in saying that, having a 5-up rerollable shield with a -1 rend makes them quite deadly. And as with the spears, you're going to get 90 attacks for having a mob of 30 with the war boss ability as well. In combination, you can throw in a shaman in there, so you get a 4-up rerollable save, and that's also applies with the spears as well. So units that I would use swords and shields on would be their own core units, or something you want to grab as an objective, because once they grab this objective, their heavier units are going to have to turn their eye to this, and that's when your other units that can flank can make their magic happen. Because a lot of the orc units in the greenskins in general work off having the first charge and work off basically hitting hard and coming like hit and run tactics, similar to what the beastmen used to do. So having orcs with 2 weapons will let you have a 1 in reroll. If you roll 1s, you get to reroll to hit, and if you got the war boss, you get to 1s to reroll to wound, which is quite effective at dealing damage and making them have to roll for their saves. Unfortunately, because they don't have any shields or protection, and orcs have a high save value, they're going to end up dead very quickly. So it's good to use these guys as support, and then plow them into the flank of an enemy unit that your other boys are already attacking. So you can get those extra damage, make them have the battle shock test, and then move on to your next target. So that's the way that the orcs with the 2 weapons work. And at 90 points apiece for 10 of them, it's not too bad. So in conclusion, it's good to have large mobs of boys in your army. That's because you're going to have to take a lot of casualties, especially from the newer armies with high rend capabilities, and they're going to have to make you roll for battle shock tests. And remember, you only got a 5 natural battle shock. So having that banner for within 3 inches of your enemy gives you another 2. So that brings it up to 7. And for every extra 10 boys you've got, that's another 1 to it. So if you have a mob of 40 boys, that's 10 bravery, the same as demons, which is quite strong. So if you lost, a lot, you're gonna at least save quite a bit and bog them down while your other guys get into the combat. So that's about it. I'll just what I will suggest is a kind of small force. If you're just beginning with greenskins, I would suggest taking one war boss with the war banner and having a mob of 40 boys with swords and shields. If you've got extra money to spend or whatever, I would suggest taking the two-handed weapon, the two weapons with the orcs, and a shaman with mystic shield, so you can buff those orcs with the 5-up rerollable shield and keep them alive. And remember, this is just a sort of a base example. You'll have other units obviously, but to keep your body of your army alive, that's what I would recommend. If you've got something like, if you want a ranged army, then I would suggest staying away from greenskins and moving to something more like Moonclan Grots or Git Mob, or even Spider Fang Grots, because they have the Arachnarok Spider, which is incredibly cheap for the points they are at the moment. Moonclan also have, you can have as many goblins, and they get, I think for their mob size, their ranged attack gets reduced by the amount of models there are, which is excellent. And you can throw in fanatics with the goblins. But this is greenskinz orruks we're talking about, but there you go. And as a final mention, before I go, the next video is going to be on Boar Boys, which is the second core unit as battle line you can take if you've taken greenskins as your war scroll battalion faction, or whatever it's called these days. If you take the greenskins, you can use Orruk Boar Boys as your battle line. So that's your second option with greenskins, and I'll talk about them next time. So until then, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy the video, and keep painting, keep at it, and if you like all the videos, yes, subscribe. Thank you.